The untouchable alien vampire queen is carrying a human's child. A palpable aura of aged blood permeated Nixar's throne room, clinging to the ancient walls, whispering tales to any who dared step inside. As always, she stood gazing into the abyss, her pointed ears subtly alert to every sound, her jet-black eyes locked on the silent, indifferent stars, far removed from the turmoil of power struggles and devious machinations pervading her palace. Nixara reigned as a queen unparalleled in the cosmos. She wasn't merely feared, but inspired dread intertwined with profound reverence. The Vampire Queen, sovereign over 3 star systems, her name was uttered in hushed tones, a malediction on the tongue. Few dared to speak it aloud, save with trembling voices and eyes reflecting abject terror. And those reckless souls who had defied this unspoken rule, oblivion had claimed them, their stories fading into the dust of forgotten ages. Immortality, a twisted blessing, had condemned her to an agonizing solitude. Her throne room, a breathtaking monument of dark stone and gleaming obsidian, felt almost confining, a stark contrast to her boundless power. Appeared to diminish as she shifted, hesitant to confine her immense power. The faint, frigid glow of far-off constellations seeped through vast windows, painting peculiar shadows on the floor, amplifying the unsettling stillness. A subtle sound shattered her contemplation, a gentle rap on the imposing doors, almost diffident. Her ears twitched with annoyance, and she pivoted deliberately. The doors creaked open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the stellar haze. Commander Jace Wren, a man who seemed to actively reject the galaxy's very spirit. His languid, nonchalant posture was the complete contradiction of everything. Nixar wore his uniform with a natural ease, the Terran fleet's understated black and silver looking almost jarring against the royal court's opulence. He dared to grin, treating her like a peer instead of an empress. "You know," he remarked, casually entering, "for a place famed for its gloom, your throne room desperately needs a stylistic overhaul." Nixar's brow arched, eyes hardening. "You're intruding, Commander." Jace chuckled, unfazed. "Hardly, but invited, wasn't I? Your team seemed quite eager for my arrival. Besides, I was curious to see if the whispers held any truth. Must admit, it's far more imposing up close." His gaze swept the room, a clear amusement dancing within. "Definitely not your average first date." Nara's lips curved into a deliberate, almost feral smile. The last soul audacious enough to jest in her domain had been reduced to mere cinders. But Jace was an anomaly. His nonchalance, his recklessness, they grated on her, yet a captivating allure radiated from him. Perhaps it was his unmitigated gall, unwavering composure, perhaps his blatant unease amused her. "Human, you stand before Nixara," she proclaimed, voice glacial and imperious. "Your purpose isn't amusement." Jay dismissed her tone with a shrug. "Technically, I'm here to broker peace, or at least I was. We both realize diplomacy between our races is about as effective as a breached hull." He waved dismissively, rejecting the very notion. "Diplomacy?" Nixara scoffed, contempt laced in her tone. "I have no need for such triviality. Do you believe I value intrigues of your paltry realm? How captivating," Jay quipped, a grin dancing on his lips. "Admit it, you're invested. The Star Queen, aren't you? Charged with the well-being of your subjects, a supposedly immortal, omnipotent sovereign shaping the destinies of entire galactic systems." He advanced, nonchalantly propping himself against an elaborate column, as if still stationed on a remote outpost. "But let's face facts. You're grappling with the burden of eons and the solitude of unmatched power, longing for a companion to share a cosmic toast with." Nexura's eyes glittered menacingly, her razor-sharp teeth gleaming in the dim light. "You presume too much, mortal." Jace, undeterred, casually raised a hand as if to appease her. "Hey, no hard feelings. I guess I anticipated you'd be, well, terrifying. I've heard the legends. Vampire Queen Nyxara, destroyer of all who defy her, the works. But being here, it's like you're not quite as intimidating as advertised. Perhaps a tad theatrical?" For a heartbeat, Nyxara fixed him with a stare as cutting as steel, then, shockingly, burst into laughter, a deep musical sound that reverberated. Laughter echoed, unexpected amusement dancing in her eyes. "Intriguing," she breathed, voice softening, contemplating this bizarre encounter. Jace flashed a grin. "Daring is my forte." A comfortable silence descended, understanding blossoming. Nyxara was captivated. Commander Jace Wren defied fear, undaunted by her power, seemingly oblivious to the perilous line he straddled, reckless of her adversaries to even consider approaching it, a near ludicrous display of valor or sheer ignorance. "I must confess," she uttered deliberately, "you are singularly distinct from any human I've ever known, devoid of trepidation, lacking deference for the immense power I possess." "Fear exists," Jasesi responded nonchalantly. "I simply refuse to be governed by it." He hesitated, conceding that's usually where I falter. Her gaze mellowed subtly, granting a nearly imperceptible acknowledgement. His audaciousness held a peculiar charm, sparking curiosity whether he genuinely comprehended the ramifications of his defiance. Did he even conceive what it meant to challenge her authority, to confront her as merely another sovereign to negotiate with? Her hand involuntarily flinched. She restrained herself. Perhaps, just once, she might indulge this mortal. "Very well," Nyxara stated, composing herself with renewed majesty. "Time will reveal the endurance of your methods." "That charm endures," Jace quipped, winking. "Oh, I possess irresistible charm when the situation demands it." He edged closer, his voice dropping to an alluring murmur. "But let me let you in on a secret. The whole Vampire Queen mystique is massively exaggerated. You'd be a sensation amongst discerning crowds with a dash of wit and a playful spirit." Nyxara arched a brow, uncertain whether she was being mocked or complimented. Torn between amusement and fury, she responded softly, "I am nobody's fool, Commander. Yet for once, perhaps we indulge your approach." Words lingered, suspended in the space between them, two souls from divergent realms, inexplicably bound by an unseen force. In that ephemeral instant, the profound entanglement of their destinies remained veiled. The day following their initial encounter, Jace navigated the palace corridors, a survivor emerging from seismic upheaval only to confront a looming aftershock. The air held a crisper quality, the heavy residue of Nyxara's aura notably diminished, still thick with an unsettling premonition, yet possessing a peculiar comfort, an uncanny tranquility that enveloped him as if imprisoned in a crystal and obsidian fortress, anticipating another encounter with Nyxara, unbidden yet undeterred. After yesterday's audacious jest at the Vampire Queen, he resolved to press forward, if only for the grim fascination it offered. The stakes felt astronomically high as Jace entered the grand throne room. He wasn't entirely astonished to find Nyxara near a towering window, her gaze lost in the celestial expanse as if it held unattainable mysteries. He half expected her regal armor, but instead, she donned a sleek black gown. Her pointed ears peeked from her flowing dark hair as she turned upon his arrival. "You," she uttered. Her voice dripped with a disdain implying his presence was tolerated, not welcomed. "I distinctly told you to cease your visits." Jace smirked, lounging against the frame. "Indeed," he countered, "but I surmised you jested. Surely the Star Queen craves occasional companionship, right?" Nyxara's lips quirked, a smile absent in her eyes. "You're utterly impossible," she breathed, though her gaze lingered. betraying her words. Your purpose? Engaging conversation, Jace declared, straightening. Motion to the expansive chamber. Behold this grandeur, yet perceive its emptiness. A queen, I presume, but perhaps solitarily so. Nsara's lips subtly curved, curiosity piqued. My throne room, you critique? Not merely this, but the air itself stifles. No melodies, no merriment, Jace gestured dramatically. What's absent? Joy, a dearth of delight. Narrowed. I'm not here to amuse you, obviously. I realize you're aiming to dominate the galaxy, obliterate adversaries, and command entire extraterrestrial civilizations. A hefty agenda, acknowledged. He casually settled into an ornate stone chair, shrugging. But occasionally, unwind a little. You're not a machine, are you? Nixara scrutinized him, like a bizarre contraption. Your concept of governance is peculiar. Jace grinned, reclining comfortably. Perhaps. But I've discovered that no matter how resilient you are, you can't sustain this indefinitely. You need someone to share the burden, or else it all becomes utterly meaningless. Nixar's posture became rigid. I have absolutely no intention of sharing anything with you. Relax, Jace replied. I'm not suggesting we cohabitate. We're simply discussing options. Jace scanned the room once more. Anyway, I concede your point about the throne room, but I've encountered far superior workspaces. How about perhaps a charming cabin nestled on a verdant moon? You could don a cape, and we could indulge in tea. He smirked, curious if he'd provoke a reaction. Nara remarked, eyes sparkling. Picture this, a refined tea service, complete with delicate finger sandwiches. It would be quite the spectacle. Jace subtly advanced, musing. I dare say, you'd appear even more formidable with a teacup in your grasp. Her gaze sharpened, yet Jace detected a hint of mirth beneath her composed facade. Commander, she began, I've weathered ages, commanded legions, toppled empires, and subjugated whole races to my decree. She paused, as if pondering the notion. And you propose tea? Jay simply shrugged. Utterly unfazed, perhaps, if you experienced it, you'd be less theatrical constantly. Theatrical, Nixara mirrored, arching a brow. Think I'm theatrical? Jay jested playfully. You treat life as your grand performance, perfecting the I'll obliterate you glare. Some levity might ease that intensity. Softening isn't required, she retorted crisply, a hint of intrigue in her tone. You speak as if you grasp the burden I shoulder. Well, Jace conceded, reclining once more. I can't precisely relate to governing numerous star systems, but I grasp the concept of stress. We all experience it. It's not dominion itself that overwhelms you, but rather the sheer tedium, the relentless burden, the eventual shift from admiring the cosmos to perceiving celestial bodies as mere illuminated stones. Nixara fixed him with an inscrutable gaze. You articulate as if you comprehend me. Jace remained steadfast. Not entirely, but I'm beginning to. To ponder if I might grasp, you transcend a mere immortal, centuries in elaborate machinations. Surely something deeper resides within you. As with all souls, he beamed. And should all else fail, a shared jest or two could lighten the mood. If you grant a sliver of your precious time, silence descended. Nara remained still, unwavering. Jace patiently waited, easy smile unyielding. Then, a sigh escaped her lips, posture easing ever so subtly. You are undeniably incorrigible, Commander, Jay retorted with playful flourish. At least I ask not for now. At least not this day. Drawing closer, voice lowered. Psst, conspiratorially, I asked. Ever weary of dominion and crafting empires? Her gaze sought the cosmos, revealing for once a glimmer beyond frigid calculation. "Yes," she breathed, barely audible. "Sometimes I yearn to shed it all, abandon the throne, the wars, the carnage, and embrace a life unshackled by dread." "Precisely," I exclaimed, sitting upright. "A shift in scenery is what you crave. Perhaps a pastime? Artistic expression, perhaps." "Space gardening? Seriously? Why not?" Jace challenged. "Succulents are ridiculously easy." Nyxara's faint smile hinted at reluctant amusement. "You're incorrigible," she sighed. "But here we are." Jace grinned. "Life's an adventure with me. Admit it." Nyxara paused, a glimmer of something unreadable in her eyes. For the first time since they landed, Jace sensed a subtle shift, a spark of connection. It was a start. "A promising start, Commander," she murmured, her voice softening, almost inviting. "Perhaps you're not entirely intolerable after all." Jace flashed a grin. "That's the kindest thing anyone's uttered to me all week." The ensuing days after their encounter unfolded with a peculiar, dreamlike cadence. Jace wasn't certain what awaited him upon entering Nyxara's domain. He'd perhaps anticipated a return to her icy, unapproachable queen persona, the type who'd obliterate anyone daring to glance askance. Instead, a gradual yet palpable transformation was underway. They reconvened in the throne room, but this, a bygone era bereft of cynical barbs, devoid of derisive remarks, only the duo present, the cosmos's crushing burden bearing down relentlessly, and a peculiar tacit accord burgeoning intensely. Jace found himself simultaneously disconcerted and strangely amused by her apparent anticipation, akin to a cryptic game with nebulous rules. Upon Jasesi's arrival, Nyxara, seated at an elongated obsidian table, exhibited a rare moment of serenity, her hands gently poised in her lap, belying her formidable stature as a ruler. Of 3 star systems, her human semblance appeared frail. Even Jace struggled to fathom it. The centuries-old vampire queen, burdened with secrets capable of shattering empires, sat before him, utterly relatable. It was deeply disconcerting. "Commander Wren," she greeted, her voice a soft, almost gentle murmur. He dismissed it as imagination. "Your Majesty," Jace responded with a playful bow, keenly noting the subtle atmospheric shift. "It's a pleasure to find you not vaporizing me today. Is this a sociable rendezvous, or am I on the precipice of cosmic annihilation?" Nyxara offered a subtle smile that didn't touch her gaze. "You appear to relish flirting with danger. Wouldn't you agree?" "I have a plethora of pastimes," he responded, a playful grin accompanying a wink as he approached the table. "Moreover, I find your intimidation attempts strangely endearing." "Endearing," Nyxara retorted, her tone laced with dryness, though Jace noticed a flicker of amusement at the edge of her lips. "You possess an eccentric sense of humor, Commander." "Indeed, it's instrumental to my survival," he quipped, casually pulling out a chair and crossing his legs. "So what's on the agenda today? Did I perhaps overlook another interstellar catastrophe? Apocalypse, or simply tea?" Her soft laughter echoed a playful dismissal. "No cosmic apocalypses today, merely affairs of governance." "Right," Jace quipped with mock solemnity, for who better to navigate affairs of governance than the magnificent, all-knowing, all-powerful Nyxara? He leaned back, offering a theatrical salute. "Your Majesty, you triumph once more, having vanquished every crisis, eliminated every menace. And now..." "Tea, correct." Nyxara gazed at him, her expression enigmatic. Then unexpectedly, she erupted in laughter, a truly authentic laugh. Not feigned or sardonic, but utterly genuine. Unearthed something long dormant, catching Jace completely off guard. Momentarily, he watched her, captivated by the newfound tenderness in her expression. "You're profoundly different from anyone I've ever encountered," she whispered, seemingly more to herself than to him. "I hear that frequently," Jace retorted, straightening up. "I'm quite the mystery, you see." "An enigma," she mused, her tone contemplative, as if weighing the very notion. "Intriguing, perhaps, or merely a subtle annoyance." "Hey, show some appreciation for your entertainment," Jace quipped, a playful glint in his eyes. "I'm providing invaluable morale." Nixara's lips curled into a barely suppressed smile. "Morale, you say? Look at you, sovereign of 3 star systems, centuries weathered, and yet captivated by my dazzling wit instead of, say, summary execution? That's gotta count for something." She arched a brow. "My continued restraint stems from a peculiar fascination. You are..." Paused, choosing her words deliberately. "You're quite unique." "Oh, I hear that constantly," Jace responded, his voice laced with amusement. "It must be this irresistible allure." Nixar's eyes sharpened. "You're not nearly as indestructible as you project, Commander." "Alas, you're correct," he stated with a theatrical sigh. "I do possess vulnerabilities. Excessively spicy cuisine, being dictated to, and naturally, being obliterated by a 9-century-old vampire sovereign." Her chin lifted with subtle defiance, a dangerous glint in her gaze. "You appear strikingly unfazed. Would my fear be more to your liking? I realize you're likely biding your time, plotting to obliterate me with your immense archaic power. However, I'm swamped with pressing paperwork, and frankly I'd prefer to avoid completing the incineration by ancient being form." That coaxed a genuine chuckle from her, momentarily dissolving the room's tension. Jace relaxed, relishing this fleeting normalcy. Nixara's features softened almost imperceptibly. "I confess I hadn't anticipated this playful exchange." "Well, what were you expecting?" Jace inquired, his curiosity piqued. "A histrionic soliloquy? A soul-crushing ordeal where I grovel for survival? I'm not a character ripped from your narratives, Commander," she retorted, a subtle amusement coloring her tone. "Though I suppose I envisioned a more apprehensive, perhaps peculiar, demeanor from you." Jace chuckled softly. "Fear rarely yields favorable outcomes. Besides, you're not as formidable as your reputation suggests." Nixara's eyebrow arched. "You find me unintimidating?" "Not precisely. You're imposing when you adopt that stern, galactic ruler persona, like you're ready to vaporize me. But when you lighten up, even slightly," he smirked, "you become surprisingly approachable." "Approachable?" she echoed, a hint of amusement in her voice. "You are an enigmatic human, Commander Wren. Guilty as charged. That's why you tolerate my presence." She cast him a sidelong glance, a subtle curve playing on her lips. "Possibly." Jace leaned in, his tone turning earnest. "But honestly, Nixara, you're not merely a monarch, and you're no relic queen passively enthroned. Your destiny transcends birthright. Surely your existence offers deeper purpose." For a suspended moment, Nixara retreated into silence, the chamber thickening with unspoken weight. Jace perceived her internal gears grinding, burdened by the gravity of ages. He'd struck a raw chord, though its resonance remained unclear. At length, Nixara responded, her voice subdued, resonating with introspection. "I've endured eons, Commander, a duration exceeding your comprehension. I witnessed the ascent and demise of empires, seen comrades perish, adversaries deceive. I've both constructed and demolished with these very hands. Yet," she paused, hesitant to conclude, "I remain isolated." "Isolated," Jace echoed, a stout whisper. Anticipated as he had, the stark declaration resonated differently. A sharp, unwelcome pang pierced him, Indeed, she affirmed, the word laden with gravity. Uniquely alone, beyond comprehension. I command an empire, yet exist as a mere specter. I was once a queen stripped of her realm, a ruler devoid of subjects. Jace's gaze softened, leaning closer, his tone hushed. You're not isolated, Nyxara. She snapped her head towards him. What's that supposed to mean? You command devotion. Enemies tremble at your name. He paused, adding with a playful grin. And then there's me, it seems. Nyxara fell silent, her gaze shifting between him and a distant point. Then, with a sigh, she admitted, Perhaps my solitude isn't as absolute as I believed. Jay smiled, leaning back. See? Told you so. The silence that followed was different now, laced with a newfound understanding. Their silence was now a cherished understanding, an uncommon connection. Words remained unspoken, yet the air vibrated with an undeniable shift. In that stillness, they both sensed an alteration, uncertain of its trajectory. A week had elapsed since Jace's last exchange with Nyxara, a week since that peculiar, unforeseen transformation. Despite mounting tension and looming danger, it lingered like an ominous echo. Unseen mist, Jace sensed a profound alteration in Nara. Her aura, her very being, had transformed. A newfound reticence and stillness enveloped her, a stark contrast to her former self. While vulnerability was never her forte, it was now evident that she was no longer the indomitable queen, reigning with glacial authority. She had become something more, something infinitely more relatable. Upon entering her palace that fateful day, Jace detected an altered atmosphere, a palpable tension, akin to an impending tempest brewing on the periphery. He proceeded into the throne room, endeavoring to disregard the unsettling premonition. A shiver traced his spine. Her aura preceded her form. A palpable, yet subtly detached presence filled the space. Silhouetted against the artificial starlight, she stood, back turned. Moonlight kissed her silvered cascade, highlighting the striking angles of her face. Gone was her armor. A simpler, dark, flowing gown now embraced her figure, hinting at power restrained, not diminished. You, Jace began, breaking the silence. Keep posing like that, and you'll fossilize. They'll stick you in a museum, and your privacy will vanish, Jace teased. Nara, unblinking, murmured, Do you ever cease your incessant chatter? Jace grinned, lounging against the wall. Not when graced by your mesmerizing presence. She finally turned, face inscrutable. Flattery? I anticipated sharper wit, Commander. Jay shrugged. I'm a trove of hidden talents. Besides, your glacial stare is slowly turning me into a zombie. I do not. Glare, she murmured, a hint of amusement dancing in her eyes. I merely observe. He scoffed, pushing away from the wall and sauntering closer. So what epic adventure awaits us today? Another cataclysmic event? A burgeoning uprising to suppress? Or perhaps a civilized conversation? Enough, she interjected, her voice crisp but gentle, gesturing towards a chair. Jace arched a brow, then acquiesced. No incineration today, I presume? Only if you persist in this infuriating behavior, she retorted, a playful smile tugging at her lips. I'll attempt to moderate myself. Down I go, he declared, dramatically plopping into a chair with a theatrical sigh. Somehow, I suspect I'll be the one craving a stiff drink after this ordeal. Nyxar's expression softened subtly. You're an enigma, Commander. Your flippancy is bewildering. Hey, it's a tried-and-true survival strategy, he countered, reclining and folding his arms. Dwelling on every minor issue just spawns new problems. Sometimes you've got to shrug it off. Believe me, I've weathered my share of storms. Nixara's gaze lingered, calculating his words. "Stress?" she murmured, her voice subdued. "You presume to understand stress." "I'm intimately acquainted with stress," Jay chuckled. "I've waged wars, executed missions deep within enemy lines, and extricated myself from countless bar brawls. My quota for stress is overflowing." "Bar brawls?" she echoed, a hint of incredulity coloring her tone. "Yeah, the classic scenario. You're unwinding, enjoying a beverage, and then some bloke spills it on you." Jay gestured expansively. Boom! Mayhem ensues. It plagues even the most seasoned individuals. Nixara arched a brow, her expression devoid of its usual sardonic edge. "You genuinely... You're a singular being, thank you," he responded with a playful bow. "I take immense pride in it, but enough about me. Let's delve into you." "I have no desire to discuss myself," Nixara stated, her voice regaining its resolve. She pivoted, her gaze once more drawn to the window. "I am engrossed," Jace probed, despite knowing better than to push excessively. "Engrossed with galactic dominion, or is it something of a more intimate nature?" Her shoulders tensed at his remark, yet she offered no immediate response, instead closing her eyes for a prolonged moment, her countenance inscrutable. Jace lingered, anticipating her reply. The oppressive silence thickened, then she murmured, her voice a fragile thread. "You believe I possess all solutions, that I command this realm flawlessly, devoid of uncertainty, untouched by dread." "I never claimed that," Jay responded softly, observing her intently. "But I sense that's the perception you cultivate, Nera." Nera confronted him, her gaze piercing. "Indeed," she affirmed, "but the truth is far more nuanced. You cannot govern for ages without wrestling with self-doubt," she stated, her tone hardening. "You cannot guide entire star systems, grappling with the nagging doubt of your suitability, questioning if those you lead and the empires you've forged will ever find true contentment in your achievements." Chase's gaze softened. "Sounds like you're burdened by more than governance. That's immense pressure." "Pressure is a constant companion," Nixar retorted, her voice edged with a forced steeliness. "But familiarity doesn't diminish its weight." He nodded thoughtfully, a realization dawning. "Is that the impetus behind your relentless drive? Everyone away, fearing they'll never comprehend?" Nixar's gaze shifted, her expression inscrutable. "I require no one's understanding, nor their pity." "I didn't imply you sought sympathy," Jace gently countered. "But perhaps, just perhaps, you need someone unafraid to challenge you." The words lingered, and Nixara remained silent, her eyes intently studying his face. Jace paused, holding his breath, wondering what she'd say. At last, she spoke. "You are utterly impossible." Jace grinned. "But you appreciate it." "Oh, please," she murmured, a subtle smile playing on her lips. "You're totally smitten," Jace playfully retorted. "You're acclimating to my charm. And come on, I'm not so awful. A dash of humor is essential." Nixara sighed dramatically, rolling her eyes, but her heart wasn't in it. "You are incorrigible." "Well, someone needs to prevent you from solidifying into a monument." He leaned back, more serious now. "Honestly, Nixara, you don't need to shoulder every burden. You don't have to bear the cosmos's entire weight alone." Her gaze shifted with unspoken emotion. Unintelligible. Then a hushed sigh escaped her lips as she faced the window. "Perhaps," she murmured, barely audible. "You're correct." Jace observed her, uncertain whether to delve deeper or remain silent. The atmosphere had transformed, imbued with a profound intensity, a blend of anticipation and unease. He sensed a subtle shift occurring between them. "You know," Jace remarked after a pause, "for royalty, You're far less intimidating than anticipated." Nixara's lips curved into a playful smirk. "You underestimate my capacity for intimidation?" "I imagine," Jace quipped with a grin, "you'd be astonishingly more captivating if you embraced a little levity." "Levity?" she echoed, her gaze sharpening. "That's hardly a quality I connect with governance. Perhaps an alteration is overdue." Jace's smile broadened. "You might just astound yourself." She paused, but the subtle softening in her eyes gave Jace a surge of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, he was starting to chip away at that formidable barrier she'd constructed. And for the first time ever, Jace relished being the one to do it. The days flowed seamlessly, like a perpetual melody without a definite conclusion. The conductor and Jace could sense the tempo evolving. The electricity between him and Nixara was unmistakable, a palpable hum rather than a snapping point. It was a unique intensity, an electric current hinting at possibilities beyond his grasp. He'd always struggled to decipher others, and Nixara, with her immense power and intricate nature, remained an enigma, cloaked in self-protective distance and enduring scars, far beyond a simple read. A woman whose gaze could shatter empires, yet in solitude, her eyes held a searching quality, as if she herself were deciphering him. Entering the throne room, he anticipated the customary oppressive silence. Instead, he found a stark contrast. Nixara, the galaxy's formidable queen, a figure who commanded cosmic fear, was striding agitatedly, hands clasped tightly, her brow furrowed in deep contemplation. Jace halted at the threshold contemplating whether to reveal himself or simply await her acknowledgement. Mindful she seemed averse to intrusions, yet before resolving, she uttered, eyes fixed downward, "You're tardy," her tone more indifferent than blaming, though edged with sharpness. "Tardy?" Jace arched a brow. "You presume timeliness when facing the most formidable woman across 3 star systems. I demand punctuality from all underlings," she retorted icily, "even the exasperating ones." "Ah," Jace murmured, crossing the room with theatrical caution. "So, I'm unbearable but still beneath you?" "Noted." She ceased her pacing, her sharp, intense gaze fixing on him. "You're fortunate to be alive." "I consider myself remarkably fortunate," he quipped, a playful grin spreading across his face, "particularly when I have the distinct honor of vexing the galaxy's most formidable queen." A subtle tremor tugged at Nixara's lips, though her expression remained stoic. "You are utterly incorrigible, Commander." "And yet against all odds, here I stand," Jace proclaimed, extending his arms in a gesture of mock submission. "Still breathing, still delivering witty repartee, and still daring to occupy space in your... What is it? A millennium-old throne room?" "It's hardly a millennium," she retorted, pivoting away, her back now facing him. "But never mind." Jace advanced, his tone deepening with gravity. "Nixara, what's truly amiss? You've eluded me for an age. I'm not so oblivious." Nara stiffened, yet remained turned away. "You're far too aware," she murmured. Jace's question hung, tinged with understanding. "You assume I'm here to mend your realm's woes, perhaps decipher your own struggles?" she whispered, still averted. "Or perhaps you're the peril I must evade." Jace recoiled imperceptibly, the barb sharp. Her tone was alien. Defenseless, a state unfamiliar to her. "I'm not leaving, Ansara, you know that. I never demanded you stay." Her voice strained. Jace sensed suppressed emotions. "Okay," he responded gently. "So you're scared?" "It's natural. We all have fears. But isolating yourself won't assist." She finally turned, her eyes ignited with a perilous, age-old rage, yet a fragile fissure in her icy armor. "You presume to comprehend me, Commander." "No, Jay stated plainly. "I'm progressing." Nixara gazed intently, her expression inscrutable, jaw firm. The quiet intensified, leading Jace to question if he'd overstepped, if she was unprepared for his offering. Breaking the silence, she whispered, "Do you comprehend the sensation of utter isolation?" She paused, eyes downcast. Centuries of solitude, devoid of genuine understanding? Jay advanced, unsure of his actions, yet the sensation resonated deeply within. "I lack such experience. However, I comprehend the feeling of exceeding boundaries, embodying an unwavering persona." Nixar's gaze locked onto his, now exhibiting an unprecedented vulnerability. "You believe yourself unyielding, Commander?" "I possess the resilience of any other." He paused, seeking articulation. "But I'm beginning to discern the possibility of relinquishing that guise occasionally." A flicker of astonishment, perhaps even awe, graced Nixar's expression, remaining unspoken. Anything but Jace could sense the altered atmosphere, a delicate transformation that subtly brightened the mood. He ventured, aiming to alleviate the weight. "Shall we delve into the matter at hand, or must I unleash further comedic genius to dispel your gloom, Nixura?" Nixura's lips subtly curled, yet her tone remained firm. "Commander, you're a diversion." Jace beamed, retreating a pace. "I'll accept that as high praise." She offered an eye roll, devoid of genuine irritation. "Your hubris is boundless." "Indeed," he quipped, raising a finger as if emphasizing an important detail. "It's a defining trait." "My greatest virtues?" Nixara uttered, a hesitant smile gracing her lips. "You are maddening. I'm fully aware." "Indeed," he retorted, a mischievous grin spreading as he casually leaned against a pillar. "So what's next? We've averted yet another galactic catastrophe, or perhaps you have some personal affairs requiring your attention." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Nixara gazed upon him without the usual icy detachment. A spark of something tender flickered within her eyes, a newfound gentleness. She appeared almost vulnerable, almost human. "Not quite as dire as anticipated, Commander," she remarked, a subtle amusement lacing her tone. "However, my patience isn't limitless, Jace." He chuckled. "I'll consider that exceptional commendation. So, amicable terms then? No imminent terminations or planet-shattering choices?" Nixar quipped with a sly grin. "For the moment, you're secure." "Acceptable enough," Jay responded, straightening up. "But in earnest, you require respite, a fresh perspective, perhaps less planetary peril and abundant mojitos." "Mojitos?" Nara echoed, intrigued. Eyebrow quirked. "I abstain from such concoctions." "You're mistaken," Jace jested, a playful glint in his eyes. "However, there's perpetually space for novel adventures. Wouldn't you concur?" She fixed her gaze upon him, and momentarily, they were simply two souls in a chamber, the cosmos's gravity poised delicately between them. For what felt like an eternity, neither emanated solitude. The nascent dawn, or its facsimile within Nixara's star system, permeated feebly through the palace's obsidian windows. Jace remained uncertain whether the star itself was vanishing or if the entire world was simply askew. Yet it seemed inconsequential. This instant, now he embraced a fresh endeavor. Persuade Nagara that remaining stagnant wasn't the optimal approach for confronting the impending turmoil. Jay advanced into the palace's expansive hall, manipulating his wrist comm. His digits danced across the tiny glowing buttons, almost as though orchestrating a symphony. Though it was primarily an anxious tick rather than artistic expression, he had grown to treasure the palace's post-curfew serenity. But currently, the computer's drone was beginning to grate on him. The longer he lingered, the more he felt like he was. "Commander," a sharp voice sliced through his reverie. "Nara urgently requests your immediate presence." Predictable, Jasesi mumbled, inputting a final directive into his wristcom. Inform her I'm en route. He briefly scanned the screens inundating his terminal with updates on the escalating galactic turmoil, but his focus was elsewhere. A more critical issue demanded his attention. Moments later, entering the throne room anticipating the customary hushed awe, he encountered a startling scene. Nakara was seated casually, cross-legged, on the... engrossed in a venerable tome, not some sterile data screen, Jace mused, blinking. A tangible relic. The jarring juxtaposition of the formidable queen he'd envisioned, and this tranquil scene stunned him. Her delicate touch graced the age-worn pages of an archaic text. Nara, he ventured cautiously, are you actually reading? She arched a brow, her gaze sharp. Its pertinence to our operation eludes me. Naturally, who wouldn't relish a good read amidst an approaching galactic cataclysm? Jace quipped sardonically. I'm merely taken aback. I hadn't envisioned you indulging in pastimes. Pastimes? She echoed, her face now a fascinating mix of puzzlement and restrained mirth. This isn't a pastime. It's a vital diversion. Jace leaned casually against a pillar, arms crossed. From the imminent downfall of your realm, the reality that every ambitious warlord in the sector craves a slice of your power? Indeed, she responded seamlessly. And from you. Jace suppressed a chuckle. Valid point. I concede I possess distracting qualities. Nixara's eyes narrowed, a cool, calculated serenity replacing any hint of anger. I gather you're here to strategize. Jace, striving to regain control, stated, naturally, but let's not feign that solutions materialize within these walls. A concrete plan is imperative. Undoubtedly, she agreed, deliberately closing her book and placing it down as she neared him. The crux lies in determining our initial move. Jace ran a hand through his hair, replying, we commence by defying conventional expectations. Nixara raised an eyebrow. Eyebrowan, and what precisely does everyone anticipate? To remain stagnant, shielded within our confines, awaiting another to shoulder the blame while we passively allow disintegration? He conceded, that's the convenient route. And you propose we deviate? Affirmative, essentially. Jace departed the pillar, his dynamism escalating as he paced. We've lingered passively for an excessive duration, permitting others to dictate the narrative. The moment has arrived for us to seize command. You are a sovereign, Nixara. Your pronouncements resonate. Let us amplify our voice, but not from a position of reclusion. I do not seek refuge behind thrones, she retorted, her tone regaining its incisiveness. From the throne, I understand the command, Jace conceded, pausing before her. But you transcend mere leadership. You're not just Empress, you're an emblem, and emblems resonate. People rally behind them, particularly when conviction is present. And you believe in my potential? She inquired, her voice a subtle challenge. Jace locked his gaze, his assurance unwavering. Indeed, I believe in your vast potential, and if we project our authority, they'll unite, not through intimidation, but through profound respect. Nixar contemplated. She scrutinized him, gauging his genuine intent. Jace's gut clenched as he wondered if he'd breached the boundary between deference and audacity. And should you err, she questioned, her tone chillingly placid. If I'm mistaken, he countered, we'll confront it united, instead of idly awaiting a crisis to consume us. The atmosphere grew palpably silent, the tension between them so intense it felt physically present. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, Nixura offered a subtle nod. Very well, she stated, her voice now glacial but with a hint of acceptance. We shall proceed, but under one stipulation. Anything, Jace responded, keen to capitalize on the opportunity. Don't expect this to be effortless, she countered, her eyes narrowing as if delivering a threat. "This won't be some trivial skirmish. Should we undertake this, it will be on my terms, according to my strategy." Jace grinned. "I was under the distinct impression you weren't fond of my input." "I am not," she replied, a faint, almost invisible smile playing on her lips. "But your utility far surpasses my initial assessment. I shall bestow upon you a degree of authority in this operation." Commander Jace smirked. "I'll consider that a high compliment." Nixar's face hardened. "However," she continued, "one misstep, and we shall not offer correction. We will act swiftly, decisively. Understood?" Jace's grin vanished, replaced by a serious look. "No further errors." Nixar's lips curled into a rare, fleeting smile. "Excellent. Let us commence, beginning with the fleet." Jace's brow furrowed. "I believed we were a bold display of power, not a cowardly fallback," she stated coolly. "This isn't just about scaring them, Commander. It's about swiftness. We'll strike with unparalleled speed." Jace's eyes lit up. "A blitzkrieg to spread fear?" Nixar's gaze intensified. "You'll charm them with words. I'll lead the charge. We'll stage a spectacle, then vanish like ghosts." Jace mused, rubbing his chin. "Keeps them guessing, I suppose. Let's just pray this doesn't backfire horribly." "Our visages are already imprinted on it," Nixar retorted, a frigid smile playing on his lips. "The crux lies in dictating the flames." Jace couldn't suppress a grin. This was the pivotal moment. They were poised to disrupt the established order, and for the first time, he sensed a shift towards their advantage, for richer or poorer. The cosmos, after all, spares no one. The galaxy had become more subdued, not tranquil, but hushed after incessant warfare and plotting. An uncanny calm permeated the atmosphere as Jace lingered at the observation deck's precipice, observing the stars scintillate and throb in the expanse. The typical engine drone of the vessel had diminished, almost as though the cosmos was pausing for breath. Nixar's footfalls echoed behind him, more ponderous than usual, as if burdened by profound responsibility which she never expressed overtly, her lustrous silver hair flowing down her shoulders like a glittering waterfall in the dim illumination. She had evolved notably since their initial meeting, and though he understood the pregnancy influenced her transformation, Jace perceived a corresponding evolution within himself as well. "So," he stated, not turning, voice nonchalant, "we accomplished it." "We did," Nixar murmured, her tone gentler than normal. "Momentarily." He faced her, casually leaning on the railing with a wry smile. "I'm beginning to suspect you possess a fondness for me." She arched a brow, her face inscrutable. "You're imagining things." "Oh, come on," Jace chuckled, raising his hands in playful surrender. "You're deeming me delusional now, considering all we've weathered. I'm leaning towards believing I'm not quite as unbearable as your initial assessment." "I never implied you were unbearable, Nixura." "Indeed," she responded, a hint of amusement dancing in her eyes despite her composed demeanor. "I stand corrected. You're undeniably difficult." "Fair enough," Jay conceded, chuckling softly. He hesitated, his smile softening into a more contemplative expression. "So, where do we go from here?" "Where do we go from here?" Nixar echoed, her gaze hardening as she stared into the cosmic abyss. "The very fabric of existence has been altered. Dynasties have crumbled, and for the first time in eons, I'm finding myself at a crossroads." Jay moved closer, lowering his tone. "Uncertain about what, precisely?" She turned to meet his gaze, her eyes piercing, yet searching. "Profoundly affected about our future, our present state. The cosmos appears altered, as do we both." "I'm essentially the same," Jay admitted with a resigned shrug, a subtle gravity underlying his words. I doubt I'll ever perceive the stars identically. Insara scrutinized him momentarily, then graced him with an unexpected, radiant smile, warming the entire space. I suspect we've both evolved. Indeed, Jace responded, a grin subtly playing on his lips. And to imagine, my sole aim was survival upon our initial encounter. I held doubts regarding your success, she retorted, her voice blending amusement and sincerity. I presumed. As much, Jace affirmed, inhaling deeply. But we've persevered this far. We've transformed the insurmountable into the achievable. Nexura's smile waned, her gaze lost in the immensity of space. There's perpetually more to accomplish. We may have triumphed in this conflict, yet more threats, power plays, and dread will inevitably arise. I'm beginning to question if I've had my fill of it all. Jay stated softly, his tone detached. This entire empire construct. I'm uncertain if it's justified. It's an immense undertaking. Do you presume you can simply abandon it all? Nixar's voice questioned. Keen, yet devoid of ill will. Only a trace of worry lingered. I believe it's high time we sought a greater purpose, Jace declared. His words measured something beyond mere conflict, transcending obedience. Surely life holds more than endless battles. A revolutionary spirit you exude, she observed, eyes sharp with scrutiny. Intriguing, he countered, a playful smile dancing on his lips. Perhaps liberation beckons, beyond mere survival. Nikara contemplated him, her gaze lingering, absorbing his essence. Silence hung heavy, a palpable tension in the air. Finally, a slow, deliberate exhale, a release of unspoken burdens. We've relentlessly chased shadows, she murmured, lost in thought. The time has come to stand our ground. Jace arched an eyebrow. Ceased, you imply, as in stepped down. She flashed him a look, the familiar chill in her eyes, yet with an underlying tenderness. Not precisely stepped down, but perhaps we unearth alternative pursuits for our time. Endeavors detached from perpetual flight. I could rally behind that, Jace responded, his tone buoyant, his smile re-emerging. Conceivably, we initiate with a sojourn to a locale devoid of conflict, crisis, or any entanglement requiring galactic salvation for a change. That appears spectacularly inefficient, she retorted, her tone parched yet noticeably warmer than before. I'm uncertain I could endure such indolence. I was cognizant of your concealed sentimentality, Jace joked. I'm completely earnest. Nixara retorted, though a spark of amusement flickered in her tone. We've achieved what many deemed unattainable. We've revolutionized the galaxy. We've challenged established empires. And now we shall architect a new dawn. Jay scrutinized her intently, sensing the gravity of her declaration. Something truly unprecedented. Yeah, I believe I can wholeheartedly support that vision. The drone of the engines permeated the stillness, a resonant sound, simultaneously soothing and disquieting. This serenity felt peculiar, stranger still, the prospect of a destiny not defined by impending combat or perpetual conflict. For once, the future stretched expansively before them, and for the first time in ages, a sense of boundless possibility emerged. Although Jace wasn't compelled to resist, he turned, a tightening sensation in his chest, unidentifiable, yet undeniably genuine. Nikara, what if we simply exist? Her gaze met his, seeking reassurance. With a subtle nod, she approached, their hands lightly touching, a silent pledge. Indeed we shall, she affirmed, her voice steady and unwavering. Together, for richer or poorer, we'll confront all adversities and forge our own destiny. A genuine smile graced Jace's face, his gaze locked, unmoving, Not on mere survival, but vibrant, full living. A shared triumph, their ultimate victory, the end.